minutes, but I'll be strict on the time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number one, the thing we're looking at here most is the necessity of clean water, and there's enough boil water advisories in First Nations across this country that we understand that to get things right, maybe instead of actually having boil water advisories to fix things, we can actually not have it in the first place, which would be don't foul up this water. Now, this is a very important watershed, the Athabasca River leading into the Slave River, leading into the Mackenzie Delta. So there's a whole bunch of pollution effects if one of these tailings dams goes wrong. We know that. We've known that for years. And many of us have worked on technologies to try and assess the problems associated with this tailings ponds issue and make sure that they get remediated much more quickly than they have to this point in time. Clearly, not enough progress has been made on implementing the technology that would actually fix this. But the moral hazard is huge, and we're witnessing that today at this hearing. And everybody, we have to make sure this doesn't happen. This is our water. This is something that needs to make sure we have as pristine so that people that drink this water and people that use this water can continue to use it as they always have. So let me go into the whole issue here where we are. And what I've heard from many of the witnesses here is the issue around regulatory capture. Now, the AER, the Alberta Energy Regulator, is a quasi-judicial body set up by the Alberta government to make sure there is no political conflict between the government and the regulator that oversees the industry. And what I'm hearing here is telling me, and what I've seen actually in some of the data points here, is maybe this reporting mechanism isn't clear. It's not just clear as far as your organizations go, but it's not clear for the government of the Northwest Territories, which is obviously impacted by this as well and has an agreement with the government of Alberta. If anything happens here, we expect to be notified, and they clearly weren't. The question is, when was the Alberta government notified? And the Minister of the Environment in Alberta tells me they were notified at the same time as the AER put out their public notice, which was February 7th. A public notice is one thing, but getting directly involved with the communities that are affected would have been much more effective. This is obviously a breach of a system, a breach of communication, something that hasn't gone right here in process. So in trying to get, like I say, we talk about regulatory capture of the by the industry, and yet this is a quasi-judicial body. So the Alberta government's not involved with this decision. It's the industry going right to the regulator, and the regulator having a process there that obviously the information isn't getting to the people and the legislative bodies, including the government of Alberta and the government of Northwest Territories, that are affected. Let me ask Mr. Stuckless, first of all, because you talked about this, negligence is, when you talk about negligence, how would you fix what seems to be a clear breach of an ability of the regulator to kind of make sure we actually are regulating this effectively?
Go ahead.
Well, my point of view is not a great one. I think you need to scrap it and build it back. I don't think that it's salvageable in its current form. Okay. And that's not to dismiss Mr. Pusher's efforts. He seemed genuine in his approach on wanting to fix it, but I do think it's got a cultural problem that can't be resolved. This has been an amalgamation of multiple departments and changing mandates over time. It hasn't blended well. It's had a leadership issue from almost the start, and it goes back decades.
Thank you.
So I think it needs to be restruck.
Thank you. Well, the question was Mr. Greigard, did I understand? Or
No, that was the question. And I'll ask the same question of Mr. Noseworthy, please.
So normally this doesn't happen, but I agree wholeheartedly with my colleague from Fort McKay. I think the entire organization has been around too long. It needs a refresher. The people that are appointed to the board of the AER are not appointed by air. They're appointed by people that sit in chairs in the Legislative Assembly of Alberta. And so there's an issue there that you need to address as well. So the political power of industry is much more than the political power of the communities, unfortunately. And so we need to correct that. We need to take the politics out of the regulation and start to take care of people's health with the regulation. That's my
Thank you.
recommendation.
Mr.